Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I'm going to be doing another American Horror Story Season 8 episode recap and review. This week's episode is number 6 in the season and it is called Return to Murder House. So I know I was super excited about this one, as I'm sure many other people were, so I won't waffle on too much at the start, but I will point out that I've done videos like this one on every episode for this season so far, so I'll make sure I link that playlist up and down below in case you want to check any of those videos out. Also, I'll point out, in case you haven't seen any of my videos like this before, that I'll be starting out with more of a recap on the episode, and then at the end of the video I'll be doing more of a review, talking about the episode and any thoughts on the rest of the season, what I might be expecting. So now with all of that being said, I'm just going to begin with the recap. Alright, so of course the episode started with Madison and Behold going to try and purchase the murder house. They were talking to a realtor about buying, and I thought it was a little funny. Madison made a great comment about them being the worst version of Heidi Klum and Seal. Anyway, they were talking to the realtor about purchasing the murder house, and he tried to warn them, saying that there were 36 deaths on the property, just wanting to make sure that they wanted to purchase it, and they said yes. So they purchased the home using money that the coven had, and I think this is very important to remember. They also made a comment later in the episode about the house being unoccupied, just for the spirits to, I guess, move around the home and not be bothered. Of course, Madison and Behold were going there just to see some spirits and get a bit of information on Michael, but they were only here for this episode and left at the end. I've got to say as well, I loved so much seeing them approach the house, walking up to it and hearing that classic score from American Horror Story. There were certain pieces of music that popped up throughout the episode that were very familiar, and I just loved that. Also, it was great to see Madison's reaction to the house when they approached. She stopped and looked at it and said, "What a shithole," in true Madison fashion. Once they were inside the house, Behold said that he knew that there were souls trapped there, and he just sensed very bad vibes about the place. However, they did settle in and started to do a spell just to draw out the spirits. After this spell, they do start to see a few spirits in the home, and we also see Ben sitting down to a counselling session with Tate. Tate said something along the lines to Ben of knowing that Vivian was still ignoring him and that Violet was still ignoring Tate. So pretty much the two men just had each other to talk to on a regular basis. The witches interrupted and Madison said that they were there to talk about Michael Langdon. However, the men refused to talk, and at this point I think Beau threw a ball and tried to play with Madison. He climbed on top of her and was just doing the standard sort of thing that we saw him do in Murder House. He was just trying to get a bit of attention. However, this was broken up by Billie Dean, who moved Beau away and confirmed to them that she was still alive. So she was the one living person that came to the murder house on a regular basis. And we very quickly see why Billie Dean was there as Constance enters. She walks down the stairs to see Madison, Behold, and also Billy, saying, "This is my fucking house." Constance sits down to talk with all of them, and very quickly she does start to talk about the fact that she is dead, and somehow they got onto the subject of drinking, that she was still drinking as a ghost, and I think Madison or Constance said that since they wouldn't be living there, who would go and buy her alcohol? And at this time, after cleaning, Moira does interrupt them and she's checking in with Constance about the cleaning that she has done. Of course, Constance goes around and finds a little bit of dust and she starts to chew out Moira about this. And in amongst their bickering, Moira does make a comment to Constance, saying that she took the coward's way out. After this, Madison asks Constance about Michael, and she said something, "I don't spill a drop of tea for free, kiddos." Basically, Constance tells them that she will only talk about Michael if they help her in getting rid of Moira. So of course, out in the backyard where Moira has been buried, Behold is digging a giant hole to try and find her skeleton. I don't think it showed them getting rid of the gazebo, but that is all knocked down. And where Madison is standing, that was in photos, or a photo that I remember talking about a couple weeks back, where we knew that they would be going back to Murder House. So Behold does find, what was her name? Hayden's skeleton first, and Madison discards that since she knows it's not Moira's. But after further digging, Behold does find Moira's bones, and they do take them inside to speak to Moira, and I think Madison asked where she wanted to be buried. Moira was actually very happy about this, as she just wants to be free of the home. So they ended up taking her bones to the graveyard where her mother was buried, and that is where they lay her to rest. There was a very sweet moment where we do see Moira reuniting with her mother, and Moira mentioned that she did pull the plug on her mother, and she asked for forgiveness for this, and the mother said that she was happy that she did so she could be free, and then both women walk off hand in hand, and I've got to say I'm very happy to see that. Moira did get her piece in the end. Now that Madison and Behold have fulfilled their part of the bargain, they do sit down with Constance to talk about Michael. And she does say a little bit about what we know already, that Tate was Michael's father. Constance also tells them that as a little boy he would kill small animals. She says she knew that this was a trait of serial killers and he almost did it as kind of like gift giving to her. And she said she would always bury the animals in her back garden underneath a rose bush, and eventually it shows her putting in heaps and heaps of rose bushes in the backyard by the sheer amount that Michael must have been killing. She also mentions to them that she told the police the maid took her own life, or maybe it was the babysitter. Either way, the woman that Michael had killed at the very end of Murder House when he was just a little boy, she sort of covered up for him. Constance also explains to them about the morning that she woke up and found him aged a decade overnight. So from the little boy until kind of teenage aged Michael that we've seen a little bit in some flashbacks, he looked a lot more like that, and it was obviously very alarming to her, even with everything she had seen so far. Now, since he is in this older body, or at the very least he's a lot bigger than he used to be, he's a bit more dangerous. He did wake her up one night, strangling her. He was saying something about being upset or angry that she was telling him what to do. And of course he did back off and was seemingly apologetic, but she was obviously very shaken nonetheless. And in an effort to help him, she did eventually send a priest to talk to him, who he also killed. Now by this time Constance was afraid that he would also kill her, so she went to the murder house and overdosed on drugs and also whiskey, and that's where she would spend the rest of her days. She knew that if she was there, she would come back as a ghost and pretty much live forever with her children. So she woke up from death surrounded by her children. Of course we know Addie's not there, but Tate was there, Bo was there, and also the fourth child, who we heard about in the first season, but they never explained much about. Apparently it was originally planned that the fourth child would be an older albino boy, and that's not what they went with this time. Instead it showed the fourth child was a young girl who didn't have eyes or didn't have eye sockets. I don't think they said her name or anything like that. So that was firstly a little bit creepy to see, but also interesting that they finally showed the fourth child. After their conversation, Madison also spoke to Ben about Michael. She said that if he spoke up, she could help him with his affliction of passing the days in front of his window. He explained a little bit about Michael, and it showed in a flashback how Michael was when he found Constance's body. He seemed very upset, and there were definitely moments in the episode where it showed young Michael having moments where he was conflicted or showing genuine emotion and sadness, that he wasn't always purely evil. And I really don't think he was faking this. He seemed upset that she was gone. Ben also explained that he was counselling Michael for a bit of time, and that he almost wanted to be a father figure to him. Even though he knew he wasn't his dad, he still wanted to help him, as Tate had rejected Michael as his son. He said that he was just too evil, or something like that. Michael seemed to have spent a lot of time in the house, and he was also getting up to quite a few troubling things. It showed him sort of participating in loops of the spirits, doing certain things that had been done to them before, like creating the smile and then dismembering the Black Dahlia. There was also a time where two women bought the house, and as they were settling in, Michael killed them pretty much immediately, and then when they became ghosts, he also killed them as well. He pretty much set them on fire and they dissolved. How did they explain it? That he made them cease to exist. So that was their spirits as well. They were gone, which was a very interesting power for him to show, but obviously we know he's very powerful, so I guess it's really not that surprising that he's able to do things that we wouldn't have expected in the show so far. Also, there was a time where Vivian showed herself to Ben, saying that they needed to take care of their son. She also said something about him not being a bad witch, but him actually being the Antichrist, and I think she made some quote from the Bible, just sort of explaining how evil he was. He was causing weird occurrences around the house, I think like hail and crows flying around the house, just certain weird things. And at this point, a satanic group came, including Miss Mead, which is interesting to see how they first met. They said that they were there to show him his true path. So one night, Miss Mead picked up a young girl who was just waiting for a bus and took her to the house where they tortured her. They cut her heart out and gave it to Michael for him to eat, or maybe it was just part of a ritual. And behind him, as a shadow on the wall, it showed kind of a demonic shape. So later that night, we can assume, or around that time, Vivian did decide to try and kill Michael. She had a knife and was going to stab him in his sleep, only he wasn't sleeping and he knew what she was up to. So he tried to do the same thing as he did with the two previous women in destroying Vivian. So it seemed like maybe she started to set alight, but Tate dove in and saved her. So he pushed her out of the way or stopped all of this from happening. Vivian also made a point of saying that his father is really the evil of the house and that he is the Antichrist. And I believe even though we knew this already, this is the first time that any other characters found out about it. So of course the Harmons knew, or maybe even other members inside the murder house, maybe Constance did, but this is the first time that any of the witches found out what he really was. Before leaving the house to go back to the coven with this information, Madison did find Violet, who was just there quite upset, and she does explain a little bit about Tate. She gave her a little bit of advice and said that Tate wasn't really evil, that it was the house making him do those things, and she showed her the fact that he had saved her mum. From there, Tate and Violet reunited as Madison and Behold left. And that was the end of the episode. I feel like this one was great. It was a little bit longer. I think I remember seeing a couple people suggest it might be an hour and a half. Of course, it was a lot longer with ads, but the whole episode itself was 55 minutes. So pretty good, nearly an hour's worth of episode, and I think it was the right episode to do it in. I guess I had been looking forward to this one for ages since I knew the title. Of course, we've had a bit of time seeing Coven characters again, and I was just waiting to see Murder House as well, to see the house and also the characters. So it was really great to have that finally. Also with this episode in particular, I did love the direction. I think Sarah Paulson did a great job. It was just so creative and very visually appealing to watch. I also personally really loved the fact that it was all around the murder house or surrounding areas. It didn't show any of the coven or the boys' school. It was really just focusing on the murder house, their stories, and trying to gather information on Michael. I've got to say, highlights from the episode, definitely seeing Moira reunite with her mother and finally having her peace, because obviously out of anyone in the murder house, I think she was someone that myself and many other people were sympathetic for, so it was great to see her have her happy ending, what she's wanted since Murder House. When her mother passed on and finally got peace, she wanted to go with her but she couldn't, and now she was able to, so they can spend the rest of their eternity together, which I thought was really great to see. Even though yes, happy endings are not a common occurrence in American Horror Story. Also, of course, seeing Constance was great. She was very much her old self again. It was great to see Jessica laying back. However, I will say I was surprised to see that she offed herself. I thought that was quite out of character for her, even though she was worried that Michael would kill her. I mean, I guess it's good that no one else was able to, that Michael wasn't able to kill her, and that she was able to join her children again. I just thought that was maybe a little bit out of character for her, but she did sort of explain it, saying that she was born to be a mother and she died to be one also, so now she can be with 3 out of her 4 kids. Of course, we also saw how Ms. Mead met Michael from that satanic group, so that was very interesting. I'd been wondering this whole time how she came about. Of course, I think I speculated and many other people wondered, was she a nanny? Was she a babysitter? Of course, it was none of those things. She just knew that he was the Antichrist and that's how she met him. A little random side note that I made here is the fact that I'm really surprised with how young they made Tate look. I feel like, I mean, maybe he doesn't look exactly the same as he did in Murder House. I'd really have to go back and check, but I feel like the whole look of him was definitely very Tate. He looked quite young compared to any of his other characters in the previous seasons. Also, I thought it was very interesting to see the vulnerable moments that Michael had. Of course, there were times where he was sad, grieving Constance, for example, and just saying he wanted to be a good person, which again, I believe it was truly him being conflicted, that he does have this evil side, but he is also a little boy as well at times, and I think that when he's being sad, or when he was sad in this episode, I think that it was truly genuine. Even though, of course, he was still doing really awful things, I really don't think that that was an act, personally. Of course, maybe I'm wrong on this, and maybe he's just trying to manipulate everybody. It just didn't seem like that to me. Something I wanted to point out about that part at the end, I was never someone who was obsessed with Violet and Tate together. Of course, they were a very popular couple for many people to watch the show. I guess I never thought that they were all that great, but I'm sure many people were happy to see them reunite, and I mean, he was forgiven very quickly, but in a way it's good to see him make a good choice to try and help Vivian, to protect her from actually being killed again by Michael, or being removed from the murder house, however you want to look at it. I thought it was maybe a little bit too easy to explain all of his evil actions on the house though, but it seemed to be good enough for Violet and probably the rest of the Harmon family as well. So In a way, it seems as though they have a happy ending, or at least the potential chance to rekindle their relationship. But surprisingly enough, the cause for them reuniting was, of course, Madison. She was speaking to Violet and she explained what Tate did, and that's how they came back together. So it really seems like this time around she is a bit more caring and considerate towards others. It's been shown a couple different ways since she's been resurrected again, and again with her, I really don't think it's an act. She wasn't doing anything self-serving when she spoke to Violet, but just trying to make her happy. Of course, she said to Behold that she's just trying to get 2 ghosts laid, but she does seem like she has turned over a bit of a new leaf this time around with her life. Her 3rd chance at life, she said. Of course, I'm glad she's still her regular bitchy self, making snarky comments and all of that. She doesn't seem too different, but it's just nice to see that personal growth, that she's thinking of others a little bit as well. Now, in all honesty, I have no idea where the season can go from here, and there's only 4 episodes left, so I have no idea what will happen, but I'm very excited to see what will happen. I do believe that they will show more of the murder house, even though I don't think it's going to be a whole episode again, whether it's through flashbacks or whether they go back there temporarily for doing anything with Michael or any of the previous spirits. I do believe the show will be back again, as I think that they are still filming there, or up until 2 days ago they were filming there. And it also seems that many people did see Jessica walking around the set dressed up as Constance up until recently, so obviously that wasn't this episode that they were filming then. Maybe it will be flashbacks, or maybe it will be them going back to the house as maybe the Coven, or potentially just Madison to do further things. Maybe there'll be a showdown with Michael or something like that. But that's just very interesting to think about, considering we were told that Jessica would only feature in 1 episode, so it seems like maybe she'll be back for more, which I definitely hoped would be the case. I thought maybe it would just be kept under wraps and she'd show up for more, but I guess we've got to see to be certain, because maybe the information coming out that people are filming around the house is incorrect. Also, going back to Madison very quickly, it seems that she is the new Supreme in many people's minds just from this recent episode. Of course, she showed standard powers she's shown already just in, you know, doing the spell work and sort of moving Moira's bones. It seems as though they've done some spell to set her free, because I don't think it was just moving the bones, but I think people are assuming she's the Supreme since she was such a heavy feature in this episode, and it's shown that she can be a good person. I personally don't think that those things add up to being a Supreme. I personally would have loved to see more power being shown from her, but I think it's just early days for any Supreme to rise up. When I read those theories, I thought it was very interesting that people are thinking about her, but I feel like maybe that's just because she was a big feature in this episode. Of course, I personally have my own thoughts, thinking that maybe they won't reveal a Supreme, or if they do, I feel like they wouldn't be very obvious about it. Again, I don't really have many thoughts on what can happen moving forward, but I'm very interested to see how it goes. I am so glad that we had this episode at Murder House. I think so far in the season, it's probably one of my favourites, so I can't wait to see what they do with the next few episodes. Again, I can't believe there's only 4 left. I don't have much more that I can say on the episode or what I expect moving forward, because I guess there's a lot of possibilities, but I think it's kind of goes without saying that the witches will be triumphant over Michael, only I just don't know how yet. I guess it's anybody's guess, but I'm keen to see how it goes for the next 4 episodes, and I hope you are as well. I'll be here every week to do these recaps and reviews, and I hope you are too. So definitely subscribe if you want to see these videos of mine, and of course, as always, please let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts on the episode were, and what you think will happen moving forward, because I'm at a loss. I have no idea on what specifically will happen, but if you've got ideas, please let me know. Anyway, I did want to thank you for watching the video today. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please give me a thumbs up if you did, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye!